Good afternoon and welcome to Talent for Tech afternoon sessions. Our next session, Your Future Made Better, is in collaboration with the High Value Manufacturing Catapult. It'll explore how STEM isn't just a subject, it's your ticket to shaping the future of how things are made. Unleash your potential to create, problem solve, and impact the world of manufacturing while building skills that lead to a dynamic career. Let's explore why STEM matters for innovators of tomorrow in the manufacturing landscape. Chairing this panel is Rab Scott, Director of Industrial Digitalisation of the University of Sheffield's Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre, AMRC. Rab is responsible for the strategic oversight for future research and development within the AMRC in the field of digital manufacturing. Over to you, Rab.
Josie, many thanks. And I'm just going to repeat something you said, and that's Prenanda, or good afternoon. I'm afraid that's as far as my Welsh goes, but hopefully the language that we're going to be speaking today will resonate with you in the audience and really just make you think about how important manufacturing is, the opportunities that manufacturing could bring to you, and where next? And the where next question is something that we're here to answer today. As said, my name is Rab Scott. I'm Director of Industrial Digitalisation at the AMRC. The AMRC is one of 7 high-value manufacturing catapult centres, here to really bridge the gap between invention and exploitation in that innovation space, looking at translational research for manufacturing. And of course, that involves skills. We can't do without the engineers of the future coming and being part of our future. And so this discussion here today is really just looking at how members of the panel, have got here today, how they think they might be moving forward tomorrow, and what's important. So, panellists, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you. My name's Eva Fritz. I'm a Regional Network Lead for STEM Learning UK.
I'm Zara-lea and I'm working at the AMRC as an apprentice.
I'm Lucy and I'm a Manufacturing Research Engineer at AMRC Cymru.
So really, I think the first questions are for Zara-lea and for Lucy. So perhaps starting with Lucy, how did you end up where you are today? Tell us about your journey to manufacturing.
So I first started to gain an interest in engineering when I was in about year 9 or 10. It was when women started to have a presence in motorsport. Lena Gades was the first female race engineer to take a team to victory at Le Mans. So it was then I realised that women have a place in engineering. So I think I shocked my maths teacher when I said I was going to do maths at A-level, but so I went on to do that. Didn't quite get the grade in physics that I needed to go to uni, which knocked my confidence a bit, but when I was 19, I started applying for craft apprenticeships. So I managed to get one at Airbus. So I was there for 3 years, come out of it a qualified aircraft fitter, which is quite cool because there's planes in the sky that I've played a part in building. So I was on the tools for about 12 months before I went on to a blue to white collar program. So it was then where I went into the offices to become an engineer. And then I've recently just graduated with a first class honours in aeronautical engineering. And I'm here today as a manufacturing research engineer.
So a fairly, traditional pathway. You did your craft apprenticeship and then you went on to do your degree that I understand you finally qualified for in September. Congratulations.
Thank you.
When you were at school, did you think you were going to be a manufacturer? Did you think you'd go into engineering? You obviously, by year 9 or year 10, had got a huge interest in motorsport. And did that drive you? Was that your passion?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it definitely moulded me into being quite a driven person. So even despite my knockbacks or not getting the grades that I needed, I found other ways of getting to where I am. So yeah, it was quite an emotional thing getting my results through and finally becoming an engineer with a degree. So yeah.
I think that's brilliant. Zara-lea, your journey here has been slightly different. Can you take us through it?
Yeah, so I never really thought I would end up doing manufacturing. I've kind of done lots of different jobs in my life. I've always been creative, and I like creating a lot of art. I like fashion, and always doing DIY jobs, and just always done lots of different things, and I never really knew what I was going to do in school. I always had lots of different interests. Like I worked on a farm since I was 13, and I worked there for years. That's probably what's kind of sparked wanting to always work in a job that's hands-on and just doing something and being active and making something work, but also having other aspects to it, like things being just different all the time, just changing.
So really, I think that your hands-on aspect came to a fore just before the pandemic, and that made you pivot slightly. Can you just take us through that part of your life?
Yeah, so just before the pandemic, I was on my gap year. I was planning on going to uni. So this was just after I did my art course in Hambridge, and then I decided to go over to New Zealand, and then that's where I started studying reflexology. So from there, that was going to be what I was going to do, and I was going to take a career in that. And then COVID happened, and things changed, but I am grateful of that now. But I was never expecting it, because I thought I would do that.
And when you came back from New Zealand after the pandemic, you started applying for jobs.
Yeah, so where I previously worked, when I said to them that I was going to be going to New Zealand, they were happy for me and said, when you return, then there is always a space here for you. So when I come back, then the company had shut down because of COVID. So I was left to just see what was out there. I ended up getting a job in the building, the AMRC building, but on Airbus side as a cleaner. And I talked to everyone in the building. I was quite interested in what they were doing. And then I decided to apply for the receptionist role. And from there, I talked to people from AMRC, and they thought I was best suited for an apprenticeship instead of that role in their company. So I was quite pleased.
So very much not a traditional pathway.
No.
Eva, STEM Learning UK, absolutely there to support STEM and promote STEM, and probably STEAM these days as well. From over the last sort of 10, 15 years, how has the demographic changed? How has the employment in this sector changed, especially in Wales?
So we have seen changes. The pandemic obviously has brought certain things to the fore. Interestingly, the last statistical data through Engineering UK was 2020 to 2015, and there was actually an increase in 13.8% in the engineering workforce employment sector across Wales, the biggest increase across the United Kingdom. We are seeing a more diverse workforce, which is great. We are still seeing underrepresented groups. Now, what I'm delighted to see today that is not reflective in the panel. We do want more women coming into the sector, and it's fantastic to see people like Lucy and Zara-lea coming in. But it's something that we want to encourage more, and employers are encouraging it more. There are certain schemes, there are certain programs. What we want to move towards is a workforce that is absolutely reflective of the society that it serves. So, we want people represented from cultures, backgrounds, different ways of thinking. We want all of them to be welcoming and coming to us because they have the skills that we want to support us.
I'll just interject there, and the skills that are really wanted, I think, are absolutely key. And we'll come back to this later on. But for those of you sat at the back, you're sat in the wrong seats, because in the seats at the front, we've actually got a handout. So if you haven't got one now, make sure you pick one up. And this is very much looking at the skills that are in demand. And it's not what you'd expect, but we'll come back to that later. So how is the age demographic? I mean, I think it's brilliant that we've got Lucy and Zara-lea here today, young women coming through. Is that reflected across the demographic in terms of employment?
Interestingly enough, no. We've seen the biggest increase in 25 to 34-year-olds. And actually, within the sector, I think that speaks of the different routes that are available. You know, that there are the traditional, you know, I leave school, I leave college, I go to university, I enter the sector. But then there are these fantastic accessible routes through the technical qualifications and apprenticeships as well that allow people at different parts of their career, so different age ranges. So as I said, the 25 to 34, we've seen an increase. We've seen a decrease, unfortunately, in 16 to 24-year-olds. Just a slight difference, a slight dip. But that's been interesting to kind of to see, you know, who's coming to us and at what point do they come to us as well, because I don't think there's any set, you know, criteria guidelines. You know, you must come to us before this age, otherwise, you know, we can't work with you. That's absolutely not the truth. You know, we know that people bring a myriad of skills through different experiences, you know, through having studied reflexology, through having gone through academic routes. Everyone brings their own personal journey and skills with them, and that's what we actually, you know, embrace and are embracing more across the sector.
What impact has STEM had on that, do you think? Where are we in the schools these days? Is STEM on the increase, on the decrease? We know it's very much promoted, but is that promotion working?
It's a really good question. I mean, we do have a big skills gap across STEM, but then other sectors are also seeing a skills gap, a large skills gap at the moment. I think promotion is key. Many of you would have seen, hopefully, individuals today wearing these badges. STEM Ambassadors, it's the largest volunteering programme in the UK, and it is people going into schools and communities to inspire young people into STEM careers. I've been a proud ambassador now for nearly 6 years. There are opportunities for employers to engage, for individuals to go in. As a STEM ambassador, I've judged competitions, I have given talks, I've done hands-on activities. If you want to help inspire and help mentor young people, help give them information about what the routes are and what their journey can be, then there's certainly involvement. We see great involvement from companies that are running schemes, professional engineering institutions that are running schemes. There's lots of opportunities, but I think it's one thing that isn't maybe as obvious is how schools maybe access this, maybe young people, how they would get involved in some of these things. So there is a website called Neon, which Engineering UK host, and that has lots of opportunities, competitions, enrichment, and our own website as well, STEM Learning UK or stem.org.uk, has lots and lots of things there for teachers, for schools, for individuals, members of the public as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Eva. One of the things that's actually become more apparent today is how many companies are doing things like this, but not necessarily linking up with people like STEM Learning UK. Eva's got a bag full of business cards from companies that she's been around and talked to today. But actually, the ambassador piece, I think that we've got 2 potential ambassadors of the future here today. So, Zara-lea, what excites you about manufacturing?
I feel like it's endless of what can be produced. There's massive factories that, you know, from like doing things like planes, like Airbus, and then AMRC. We're really doing so many different things, and yeah, it makes the world, you know, makes the world turn, and really creating some massive changes to like society as well, especially with AI and bringing these brand new things out that are only going to develop even more as time goes on. And yeah, it's the beginning of the future, really.
So what do you actually do today?
What do I actually do?
You're involved in assembly and disassembly and using your hands on the shop floor. You create things, which harks back to your creative background. You know, how's that really brought you together in terms of being able to do something positive?
So yeah, I feel as if what we can do at work, and for me, like helping people, I'm kind of just like a helping hand. People be working on projects. Like I don't work on projects directly, but people will approach me and say, "Oh, I just need this doing. I just need that." And it feels good to kind of know bits about everything and see everything before actually working on that yourself, and just being helpful, and also being creative. I feel as if I can have a different view on it than like other people, perhaps. Definitely in terms of design work, I always have a lot of creative ideas when it comes into design and things. I love doing that. Yeah, and it's nice to see it all come together as well, definitely.
That's brilliant. Lucy, motorsport was a big part of your background. You're obviously now not so much in motorsport, although the AMRC Cymru does work with automotive companies. What excites you about manufacturing? What makes you get up in the morning?
I think particularly my current job role, it's great to have all of this technology coming through, but I think the main difficulty we have in industry is being able to apply that to an industrial environment. Because obviously if you look at all of the companies out there, some of the technology can be quite delicate. From my production background, delicate stuff doesn't last. So it's great that this technology is possible, but making it robust enough to last in a production environment, those types of projects are the ones that I get the most out of, because it's making that technology effective, not just achieving something that someone's decided is a good idea, if that makes sense.
So you've obviously been through a level of technical training, but what other skills have you picked up while you've been at going through the Apprentice program and then at the AMRC? Because the non-technical skills are probably as important as the technical ones, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. I think looking back now, I definitely value the skills I picked up along the way more, because I think I'm a big advocate for apprenticeships, because you develop and harness professionalism to be effective in a working environment that you just wouldn't get going straight to uni. So my craft background, I'm really grateful for, because I've started at the bottom of a company and worked my way into the offices. So it made me a better engineer going through that avenue, because I could get the information what I needed from the operators on the shop floor more effectively than, say, someone that's just come straight through uni, because I'm understanding the tools they're talking about. I've got an appreciation for what their day-to-day life is like, because I think the operators are so valuable to the manufacturing environment, because at the end of the day, they're building the product and they're using that equipment every day. So they've often got better ideas than the engineers. So it's just a case of us making those ideas possible. And they often respect you for that as well, and not going in and saying, "Oh, I think it's this." You're listening to them, and that goes a long way.
Zara-lea, I know that when we had a discussion beforehand, you were surprised when I stood up and admitted to suffering from imposter syndrome. I think everyone does. And that gave you a bit of confidence. And yet, looking at you, you're bringing so many of these softer skills from your previous experience. You worked in retail, you worked in customer-facing operations, and you're now picking up the technical skills by doing hands-on work.
Yeah.
You know, do you think that this has been a learning paradigm, a way of learning that's been better for you than traditional university, perhaps going into a mechanical engineering or aerospace program?
Oh, 100%, 100%. I am really happy that I chose to do an apprenticeship. I think to be learning on a job and, you know, learning at reading, researching, but then being hands-on with it is so different from going to uni and, you know, that's all researching and reading and just learning about it in a classroom. But when you have both and you're actually involved in things that are happening, things that people are working for, it just changes the whole dynamic because you know how it is in a workplace. You don't have to kind of guess. And all the work that you're putting in, you get to see why that is done and what it kind of goes to and why you need it. Yeah, I think it's a much better thing for me. And I definitely feel more suited for that as well.
So I think what I'm taking away from this is that it's horses for courses. Different people appreciate different learning methodologies. Lucy, what changes have you seen in engineering manufacturing in the relatively short time that you've worked in the sector, you know, in terms of the culture, in terms of the approach, in terms of the workforce?
Yeah, so I've worked in engineering for 7 years now. When I started, I was one of 4 girls in my class. On the undergrad course, there was a few more girls, but yeah, so there was the 4 of us trying to handle all the boys. It was chaos, but yeah, definitely since, yeah, because I still remember my first shift. I drew the short straw and ended up on the busiest section of the company. And I had to go to the storeman and ask him to order me smaller gloves and a smaller harness because everything else was built for a man. Whereas now, when I moved on from Airbus and even the office I'm in now, there's a lot more women and female representation. Yeah, so I think there's definitely a lot of work to be done, but I think that's not necessarily just a female-centric issue. I was quite interested when I was at Airbus on the ergonomic side of things. So particular builds struggled to do certain jobs. I struggled to do certain jobs because I just wasn't strong enough. So I think if we want to see a more diverse workforce, particularly in production environments, I think ergonomics is definitely an area that we need to invest in, just so it is possible for anyone to tackle any job. It's not just you're 6 foot that you can reach that, so you can do that sort of thing. So yeah.
You've been in engineering even shorter period. Have you seen changes even in the last few years?
Changes from what I knew of like manufacturing places, definitely. I've seen our workshop grow, but I haven't really been there long enough because I'm just starting my 2nd year of college now, in my apprenticeship. So I hope to see that change, but for definite by the time that I've finished my apprenticeship. I really hope to see the progress of things by then, because that's when I'll be headfirst into work.
Eva, why aren't people going to manufacturing? Or aren't people going to manufacturing? You know, is that a presumption I just made?
I was going to say that the challenge of attracting talent to the manufacturing and engineering sector is not unique to the engineering and manufacturing sector. There are other sectors equally that are being challenged right now, finding great talent and good talent, or people that see the sector as an attractive one to come to. I mean, we've got some brilliant illustrations here of how you can come in through various routes, but then you choose your route. There are so many opportunities that I see across engineering and manufacturing. You just have to look at some of the stands here exhibiting today. There are phenomenal advancements. I've spoken to people today from Sony who do amazing stuff around technology and digital spaces. I've spoken to a gentleman who does diamond jewelry in the same space. Manufacturing has an absolute plethora of opportunities. One of the things that I always stressed when I was around engineering was just how much opportunity there was to travel, to learn, to continue lifelong learning, to continue to train, to work across different fields, and also to work with different employers, if that's a passion of yours. We joke about an area in Derby where there is automotive, but there's also some other companies, and automotive and rail, and they switch between the 3, and someone will have a lifelong career by going to each of them for 7 years in a row, 5 to 7 years, and then they'll switch and they'll go somewhere else. What excites me the most about the sector is the advancements. There is things around when you talked about helping people and having a role that makes a difference. some of the work that's being done across manufacturing of medicines and the technology that sits behind that, and how we won't be relying on, thousands of prescription medications. We will have the manufacturing capabilities to be able to, 3D print someone's pill or medication for that individual, absolutely bespoke to what that individual's needs are for them. That's something we wouldn't have even considered 10, 20 years ago. We wouldn't have thought we had the technology. We wouldn't have thought we had the capacity or the thinking. This is why we want disruptors to come into the sector. We want young people and people from different sectors and different experiences to come forward with their ideas. It's how things like Uber happen. I want to be the largest taxi company in the world, but I don't want to own any taxis. We want to be an amazing manufacturing company, but I don't want a huge factory. I'm going to give my employees their own 3D printers, and then I'm going to send them the stuff. They'll speak to the clients, and they'll create things. They'll design things that our clients want. And I don't need a massive clean factory to do that, because people will have that in their own individual spaces. If it becomes popular, we might then take on a larger manufacturing site, or we might make it open source. We might allow others to start creating this product with us and make it better and help us make it better. So I think there are huge opportunities. I've been, you've seen how excited I am running around speaking to people today. There is so many opportunities, and I think it speaks to what people's passions are, what people want to do going forward, to where they start, seeing opportunities and start exploring those. That there are so many opportunities. You don't have to pigeonhole yourself or think that you're going down one path. One path will open many, many routes for you.
I think that's a really important message, that engineering manufacturing is such a diverse sector that the huge opportunities in it. So, quick bit of audience participation. How many of you youngsters, please, this will be interesting to see how many of you consider yourselves to be youngsters, have ever thought about doing a job in manufacturing? 2 or 3. You're not young.
Yes, he is.
How many of you have considered working in the tech sector? That's a really interesting observation, that the tech sector is seen as not being manufacturing. We could have a discourse for ages about that, because for us, manufacturing is about creation. It's about being creative. But it's about also developing transferable skills. What do we need to do about the skills that aren't sector specific, but are actually about the lifelong learning skills that we need? And this is probably where we have that second piece of audience interaction, by having a look at your employability skills handout.
So I think there's this perception, and I think it speaks to how we find employment in this country. You look for a job advert, you sort of go, it needs me to program, it needs me to code, it needs me to work on this specific machinery. Oh, I've never worked on that machinery before, I've never had access to it, I can't do that job. Whereas if we were to look at what skills do you need to be in that role, do you need to be able to communicate with people? Because you have to work as part of a team, so you have to be able to speak and be understood and work together and understand what colleagues are doing. Can you be resilient? If the first time you try making something or doing something, it doesn't work, you can't just go home. Can you look at it with that methodical thinking and problem-solving skills to say, I think that's why it didn't work. Or I'm going to change this, and then I'm going to try it again. And okay, that won't work. Okay, so I'm going to get someone else involved. I've tried this twice. What do you think I'm doing wrong? It's those softer skills, or some people refer to them as employability skills. Those are the ones that employers want to see. I mean, they see them, the way they bring them out sometimes in assessment centres. So it's not maybe necessarily an interview, it's with the conversations they have with you, it's when they observe you. It's when they ask what other stuff you've done before you've got into the room with them. I've studied reflexology, I've volunteered in my community, I'm part of a sports team. What skills do you bring from your experience, from those experiences, and from your home environment that makes you a desirable employee? So it's that thing that employers are looking to really bring out now. What are the skills that we want our people to bring with them? We can teach you how to program, we can teach you how to use tools. We just want you to come be able to communicate with us, be resilient, be able to problem solve, and have some, form of numeracy, digital literacy. But again, a lot of that can be supported and trained in-house as well.
I think one of the things, thank you, Eva. I think one of the things you said there is absolutely critical. And this is about having a diversity of knowledge in terms of, ever used the term digital literacy? And literacy is different to skills. Literacy is knowing about what skills you would need to go and find, what skills you would need to go and recruit. And we're seeing that across the board, that this being literate, I'd like to think I was literate in AI. Can I program AI? No. But I know who I need to go and get. And so it's understanding what you need to apply where. A bit like being a manufacturing engineer, knowing which tool to use in the right place. So, Lucy, we've heard your background, we've heard what you do now.
Yeah.
Where would you like to be in 5 years' time?
So my main interest is aerodynamics. So when I entered my third year of my degree, because I knew I wanted to end up in that job role at some point. My dissertation was based on cycling aerodynamics, so I'm hoping going forward that I can steer my career to have more of a focus on that. But I do think that my manufacturing background is really valuable to that, because a lot of the time, particularly with aerodynamicists, they go in and a particular design's the quickest, but they can't get a drill in to drill that particular hole, or it's pairing up a product that's fast and a product that can be manufactured effectively as well.
Okay, so that's where you want to be in 5 years' time. When you started off talking to us, you mentioned about motorsport and how there was a role model in motorsport.
Yeah.
Going forward, you want to be that role model, but for manufacturing and engineering.
Yeah, definitely. Just in STEM in general, really, I found it a really valuable area to work in. I would love to be, even if there's one young girl or boy from this talk that's inspired by my story to become an engineer or a physicist, doctor, or whatever, it's all under the umbrella of STEM. Yeah, I'd be happy that I've inspired them to chase their dreams.
Making a difference, that's great. Zara-lea, 5 years' time.
Well, definitely want to be fully qualified by then. And I'm hoping really that I can take things from working for a big company into my personal life as well. So their whole thing on sustainability, I'd love to hear about it, because I think it's fabulous that a big company are doing that and making it such an important thing, because it is such an important thing. So I want to be able to bring that in, in my own life and things, like talking about business and invoices and all the paperwork you have to do. And when I create in my own time paintings for people, I find it awfully awkward to say how much things cost. But it is, it needs to be done, and I need to take a bit more of that approach on. So I'm learning all the business traits at the AMRC, and it's...
So it's not just about the technical skills, it's about the whole life skills.
But even down to tools, like I know how to use like so many more tools now, and just think logically, a bit more logically about how things work and understand. There's not a lot of things I knew about electrics beforehand, and now I know the basics of how things work in terms of robots, which I just wouldn't have known before. So it's opening new doors in lots of different directions for me. So I'm quite pleased.
You mentioned there about sustainability and what big companies are doing. Can you give us an example of what the AMRC is doing about becoming a paperless shop floor, perhaps, and the impacts that that could have?
Yeah, so we want to go paperless, as you say, and we have screens now in the workshop next to different machines that if you want to see the risk assessment for that machine, you can go and look at that, and it's also quite good because if you want something updated or need to make sure that it's been updated, there's more of a guarantee that it has, well, there is a guarantee that it has been, because it can go straight onto that, and it's all there for you. And yeah, we've done some statistics of things as well, like measuring how much energy that we use too. So all aspects are looked at as well.
So Lucy, I think that you would be an advocate for saying that manufacturing can have a huge societal impact, whether it's about the things that are made or the ways that things that are made. You know, so and that's obviously one of the big challenges that we've got: sustainability, net zero. What other challenges do you want to address between now and the next 5 years, you know, about gender balance, about diversity, about discrimination in the workplace?
I'd love to see, obviously, more women in manufacturing environments, but something that I've learned and maybe isn't talked about a lot is having an appreciation for those that are already in that environment and have been so in a time where women maybe weren't in that environment. Like when I was on the shop floor, often on sections you were the only girl, and I think often maybe some of the more experienced operators would say things, and yeah, I think it's, I'd love to see more women, but at the same time, as we go into that environment, their knowledge that they've got is invaluable, but we just need to have an appreciation that we've not always been around, so it's a case of kindly educating them on maybe what not to say. I had a nightmare when I first got on the shop floor. If stuff was considered too heavy for me, I wasn't allowed to pick it up, and it drove me mad. But you work your way around it and build those relationships with those operators to a point where you're seen as, maybe it's not the correct term, but one of the lads, and I was more comfortable then when I was seen as one of them, not the only girl on the shop floor. Like, yeah, so yeah, so more women on the shop floor, but I think it's just making any young women aware that going into that environment, there may be people that say the wrong thing, but don't take it to heart, because 99% of the time, their heart's in the right place. It's just they're not used to having us around.
Is that common, Eva? You know, what will the engineering workforce look like in 5, 10, 15 years? Are we seeing it changing? Are we seeing the trends behind that?
We are seeing changes. We are seeing, brilliantly, we are seeing more women enter the field, which is fantastic, and please, more of you. We are seeing also people from more diverse backgrounds, and they bring with them that unique perspective, that unique outlook. A lot of that, we're doing some work at STEM Learning UK with employers and groups where we are supporting students from SEND backgrounds. So we're looking at young people maybe on the autistic spectrum or with Asperger's, and the way that their brains think is phenomenal, and the way that they approach problem solving, and the way that they communicate. That there are some employers, GCHQ is a great example. They specifically target young people with those different mindsets and the different ways of thinking and those diverse backgrounds, because it means that they approach problems differently. You know, that they're not always going for, you know, that they're saying, just hit it with a spanner. No, let's think about something else. You know, let's take another slice. What if we looked at taking that piece apart? What if we asked the person who made it? What if we changed the material it was made out of? And conversations like that only happen when you have different people in the room. So the ambition is absolutely there through the sector. You know, please come and join us. We want people who are different. And if you don't see yourself in that space, then that's on us. And there's a lot of work that we are doing, as I said, with STEM ambassadors, with working with employers. We've got some brilliant ambassadors in terms of champions for the sector here. If we promise to be more visible and to show people that we are here and that we want more people as well. I think that would be a good start.
Even I know you don't hit things with spanners. I'm literate. However, have we got a supply-side problem? Are we producing people with the engineering, with problem-solving, with that mindset early enough? Or do we need to do something about fundamentals?
Well, we have a challenge. Obviously, we work in this in the UK to the national curriculum, so we follow a set. This is what we want to be teaching young people. At the end of that, this is what we hope comes out. Well-rounded young person. There is a huge space and huge opportunities for enrichment. Not every young child is taken to museums at the weekend, for example, or science exhibitions. It's where can we, outside and inside the school environment, enrich the curriculum. So when we all did maths at school, did we actually work on specific live mathematical projects? Did we ever have maths equated to, for example, money? My maths teacher was phenomenal at school. I literally could not love him more, and I hated maths. But when he came into the room, he made things real. He would put a sum, but then he'd put a pound sign in front of it. So ever imagine it's money? I'm like, oh, okay, it's important now. Oh, right, okay. And it was about trying to change that perspective. Real life projects. There are great universities out there that work with employers that do real life projects. Schools can do exactly the same thing. You can work with employers on specific programs. There are fantastic enrichment competitions. Cyber Centurion is one of them, for example. It promotes, again, digital knowledge, but also cyber knowledge. There are lots of ways, I think. The trick is, getting out there. I said Neon is a great source of resources. Our website is a great source of information and connecting the STEM sector with employers, with schools as well. We work with every single school. So, whether that be those teachers accessing resources through our website, to teachers or technicians coming to do specific CPD with us, to people coming along and hosting networks with us, there's always opportunities to start that conversation.
Is the UK unique, or can we learn from other countries? What's the international dimension like?
We can absolutely look to other countries. And interestingly, a lot of the countries where we would hold them up as good practice, as best practice, so countries like Germany, for example, we look at how the sector is perceived, and from an early age, there is an absolute, there's an awe around apprenticeship, there's a respect around that historical pathway. It's similar when you look at society, I want to be an engineer. Brilliant, that's a fantastic job to do. I will encourage my child to do that. Whereas in, perhaps not so much in this country, it's like, I want to be an engineer, okay. Or I want to be on X Factor, or I want to be an actor, or I want to be something, there are lots of other viable careers that, would be exciting, that would be interesting, that would pay well. I think there's a job on us to promote what we have and just how amazing the salaries are, the opportunities are, the opportunity to be involved in cutting edge technology, the opportunity to lead in research and innovation. We have all that, but there are absolutely things that we can learn. Speaking at Tech Week in Birmingham to a gentleman from Japan, and some of the stuff that they are doing there is absolutely phenomenal, especially in terms of robotics. There is definitely things that we can learn, that we can appreciate. There's a knowledge transfer network that we can work with. I think it's just opening ourselves to have those conversations and know that we might not be the best for one thing, but that we have information and knowledge to share across many sectors as we go forward.
Your comment on the perception of engineers and engineering was really interesting. In 2016, there was a survey done of secondary school kids about who's the most famous engineer you know. As engineers, we'd probably come up with Brunel or maybe Elon Musk these days. No, it was the car mechanic out of Coronation Street. We need to change that perception. So really, just to finish off with, we've sat here, we've talked for 45 minutes on stage. What would you hope members of the audience to take away? One thing. Lucy.
To definitely not be knocked back by your failures. I think ultimately we learn more from our failures than we do from our wins. I know I certainly have. I think whatever career path you choose, there's going to be setbacks, but if it's what you really truly want to do, then there's nothing stopping you. It's going to be hard work, but if you want to make it happen, there's nothing stopping you.
Brilliant. Zara-lea.
I would say that you don't have to know exactly what career you want to take, and that you can go down any route and experience lots of different jobs or hobbies, and just really go out your way and try and find what you enjoy, and I think then the path will be clearer on what role you want to take.
Eva?
Well, as we've learned today, no two journeys are the same, but also no two people in the sector are the same, and they shouldn't be. It doesn't matter how you come to us, just get here, just come, just start a conversation, apply for a job, and disruptors are very, very welcome.
And for me, don't ask why, ask why not. I'd really like to thank my panellists today, Lucy, Zara-lea and Eva. If you want any further conversations, we will be around. We will be on the Innovate stand down towards the exit beside the coffee stand. Always a plug there. Thank you, and thank you for Wales Tech Week and Talent for Tech, nearly got it right, for allowing us to have this conversation today. Thank you.
Gab as well. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Rav, Eva, Zara-lea and Lucy, and thank you for being with us in the audience today. We're going to take a short break, but our next session isn't too far away. It's at 2 p.m. and it's on nurturing tech's inclusive equation. So that's fostering diversity, accessibility, and harmonious employer-employee relationships. It's going to be a very interesting one, and it's happening right here on this stage at 2 p.m. So hopefully see you then.